Hello, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Lauren. And this is I've Got Guts,
a podcast about living and thriving with chronic illness. Let's be real, it is really hard.
But it doesn't have to be. You are not alone.
With this podcast, we want to create a community and a space to be able to talk about the tough stuff
and laugh along the way.
The idea for this podcast stemmed from us trying to find one for ourselves to listen to, but not being able to find anything that didn't make us more sad or frustrated.
Our goal is to talk about the hard stuff, but also talk about how to get through it, be positive, have a full and productive life, and thrive.
But before we get started, just so we are clear, we are not medical professionals. We are just here sharing our personal experiences.
So we're going to kick it off with our shout out today. And our shout out is to Martin Mueller. And he is the founder of the Achalasia Awareness Foundation.
We're shouting Martin out because we actually have him here for you guys today.
And we're so excited and honored to be able to have an opportunity to interview him and share him with all of you.
All right. We are so very excited for our episode today.
Yes, we are. Today, we have the privilege of having a very special guest on, Martin Mueller. Martin has a rare disease called achalasia, and he was diagnosed back in the 80s. Is that correct, Martin?
Actually, it was 95 is when I was diagnosed.
Okay, 95. And he has dedicated himself to supporting people with achalasia.
Martin has provided an online presence which offered a forum for discussion for patients to share and compare their experiences. Discussions included procedures people were undergoing and whether or not the results were successful in helping people to manage and cope with this disease. Over the years, people in similar circumstances who felt isolated and who recognized a lack of information and support asked Martin to formally head a foundation. This organization would serve to help and support him in his work and further the mission of achalasia awareness, support for patients, caregivers, spouses, families, and the medical community, while promoting research at the same time.
So in 2010, the foundation was started by Martin, and the name, the Martin Mueller IV Achalasia Awareness Foundation, was chosen by board members. And I experienced firsthand Martin's compassion and support when he got on the phone with me to help me navigate my feelings and emotions after I was first diagnosed with achalasia. He took the time to explain things to me about my tests and the options I should be given, and he was just so helpful. And Martin, I will forever be grateful for you and your advice all those years ago. And we are just so thrilled to have you here today to share your story and continue to bring awareness to this disease. So thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to join the podcast and share more information.
Lauren has talked so much about you over the years, so I'm so glad I finally get to meet you. So let's get started. Our first question for you is kind of your initial symptoms. So would you be able to describe the first symptoms you experienced and how they impacted your daily life?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the time frame where I got diagnosed, which is in 95. So I got married in 93, and I was having issues, just eating various foods and stuff like that. And it progressively got worse to the point that I was, losing a lot of weight. I got down to 125 pounds. And my wife kept telling me, go get checked out. Something's wrong. And I kept blowing it off. And she finally, what tipped it over the edges, she made a spaghetti dinner one night. And I was sitting my lazy boy waiting for her to bring me my meal. And she walked right past me into the bathroom and flushed it down the toilet. And she said, "That's just where it's going to go anyhow." I was like, all right. So I went and got checked, but I was having problems basically eating almost everything. I was regurgitating all the time, having difficulty swallowing. And it was just an every meal type thing that just kept progressively getting worse. So I went and got I went to the doctor, and that's how that went. But as I look back over time, I started realizing I was having way more problems than just this significant regurgitation and problem swallowing back as late as or early as 86. And I noticed back then, and I was a teenager then, that when I was eating my breakfast meal, my mainly cereal, I was having a hard time eating cereal. And so I just kind of moved that out of my diet. And then as things kept going, it was cereals, and then it was breads, and then it was, you know, bigger things, bigger meals, to the point that I was even regurgitating drinks, water and sodas and stuff like that.
God.
So the 95 timeframe, it was significantly bad. Mm-hmm. But looking back, as I understood how this disease process worked, I was having problems way back as a teenager. And it just was, I correlated it with back then is I have really bad environmental allergies. And so I figured, you know, all the mucus drainage and the allergy seasons, and that was just what was causing a lot of those issues. But in reality, it was the disease process, and it had manifested itself back as early as 86.
Wow.
Crazy. It's crazy. So, and I think that's where when I got from the 80s from, I know somewhere when I was reading up on just your story that that number 86 comes to mind. So you were having those symptoms, and then, you know, what was it like for you finally getting diagnosed with achalasia? Because back in the 90s, I mean, it was different, right? Than it is now today with the tests we have. And, you know, how long did it take for you to get that formal diagnosis?
Actually, I was fairly lucky in the diagnosis process.
Ooh, okay.
Because talking to many, many people over the years, they go from one doctor to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's just a horrid, lengthy process of finally getting good answers to what may be going on. And then when they finally get the good test, the proper test, then it's confirmation. For me, at the time, my wife was in the military, and we were on a military base. And back in those days, everybody that was in the military, family members and went to the base doctors, which typically is not the best doctors in the world. But we went in there, and I told them what was going on. And the doctor, I don't even remember their name, ordered a barium swallow, x-ray. And then they did an endoscope, and they did the manometry right off the bat.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Exactly. So most people don't get that manometry test for like way down the line. These doctors do all these other little things, and then they finally say, okay, we'll do the manometry test. Well, back then, and it's a little different now, there's a couple different tests, but back then the manometry test was the tube up the nose, and they run the test, and that's it. And fortunately for me, I've only had one.
Oh, lucky.
So they did the test. Everything confirmed that I had achalasia. Everything. I had the classic Burbeek X-ray. My EGD showed that, you know, I had some stricture down in the LES area, which is a lower esophageal sphincter. And then the manometry showed that I had classic achalasia. So I got lucky.
Yeah, that's crazy. They did all those tests at once.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't even hear of that now.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So what options were you given in terms of treatment and surgery?
That's where the breakdown kind of happened. So back then, because it was not as well known as it is now, and even now it's not that well known, so to speak. They basically told me, we're going to give you a balloon dilation and you'll be great. You'll be fine. I was like, okay. And I was young back then, and you know, you kind of rely on your doctor's knowledge and their skill and stuff to, you know, kind of direct you in the right direction. And so I'm like, okay. So I had the test, and I think it was within a month, I had a EGD balloon dilation.
Okay.
And then they sent me home. And it worked for actually quite a few years. But then, as we know, because this is a progressive disease, a treatment is a treatment, and that doesn't mean that you're not going to have another treatment.
Right. Oh, so then after you had the balloon dilation, what steps were next for you?
It was just a waiting game until, the symptoms returned and I started having more and more problems again. And then, of course, we moved because being in the military. So now I had to start the whole kind of process over. Although, because I had the medical documentation, I didn't have to do all the tests again. So went to a new doctor and we started discussing options then. And at that point, I ended up having some more dilations, and 4 of them was done with Botox.
Okay.
So tell us about the Botox. So they were putting the Botox in your LES, right?
Yeah,
Is that
basically
where they were
what
getting
they do
it?
is they do an EGD, they do a balloon dilation, and then they inject Botox, which is the botulism strain, into 3 sections of your LES. And by doing that, it paralyzes that muscle in an open position. Okay.
Right.
Problem is that Botox could only last a week, typically 3 months. And then your body naturally leaches that botulism Botox out of your system. And then you start reverting back to the same issue you had before. Right. So I was given kind of the option of let's do surgery or let's do Botox. And I'm like, at that point, I didn't want to get surgery. It's kind of a naive thinking on my part, not educated with what the disease process is. So I had the Botox, and I had it 4 times. Well, then we got word that my wife was going to get moved again. And we were actually going to go overseas. And so I figured, well, let's just do the surgery and hopefully I won't have to go back in every 3 months and be sedated, have an EGD,
right,
more Botox injections. And so I figured that would probably be a longer term option for management of the disease symptoms. So I ended up in 2003, had a laparoscopic helemyotomy with a fundoplication.
Okay.
Partial fundoplication. Then we moved to England, and within about a year, I started having the issues over and over again.
Oh, no.
And at that point, I started recognizing, okay, when I was having problems eating, okay, not too bad, but when I started losing weight, there's an issue because obviously I'm not ingesting enough nutrition to maintain a healthy body weight, healthy lifestyle. And I'm regurgitating too much and I'm starting to basically waste away.
Right.
So I went back to the doctors over there in England where we were. And of course, again, I didn't have to do all the tests. They would do the barium swallow and they would do the EGD, but I never had another manometry. And we started discussing about, what's the options. And at that point, they figured the fundoplication or the wrap was too tight.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
And which in my experience, talking to a bunch of people and with my surgery, if you don't get that wrap like 100% spot on, you're going to have issues.
Okay.
And that also kind of depends on where in the disease process you are, how much damage has been done to the esophagus and the LES at that point. So we started discussing again when I need to find another doctor. And because we were over in England, he said, well, we can get a doctor on the base. And I'm like, no, that's not going to happen because I need a specialist.
Right.
And they just had general surgeons there. Mm-hmm. We can send you back to the United States, to Maryland, and have the surgery over there. But then that would put a lot of strain on the family, the kids, and everything like that, because I'd have to come over here for at least a month. And then, they want to do some checkups and stuff like that before they release you. So that would have been a big hardship. Right. And they said the other option was we can find a surgeon on the local economy in England that can do it. So I was like, okay, let me look into some stuff and I'll get back with them. And I got right on the internet and I started searching around and I found my next surgeon in Oxford, England. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, he was an American doctor. He's just practicing over in England.
Oh, that's great.
Right. So I started having this discussion with him. We had a few consult meetings and stuff. And he said, well, and he did the barium swallow and the EGD again, like most of them do. And so his consensus was, you need another surgery. You probably need the wrap to be removed and not put it back. And depending on what I see when I get in there, depends on if I cut more or if I cut somewhere else on the LES. Oh, okay. He says, but I'm not comfortable doing it laparoscopic because I don't really know what the other surgeon did. So I was like, all right. He says, so I want the surgery to be done open. Mm-hmm. It's like, fine. I just, want to, kind of be better.
Right. Yeah.
So within about 2 months of my last consult with him is when I had my second surgery. Mm-hmm. And it was an open helermyotomy redo. He removed the wrap and then extended the myotomy further down onto my stomach to try to open it up more.
Okay.
Now, looking at all this over time, I've kept track of all my barium swallow x-rays and my tests, so I could see the progression of damage done to my esophagus and how distorted and angulated or curved it got and how wide it got. So I already knew I was in really not great shape at my second surgery. And that second surgery was done in 2005. So 2003, my first surgery, 2005, my second surgery. She gets orders to move back here to the United States to Georgia, where we currently still live. Mm-hmm. And within about a year of my second surgery, I started having more issues again.
Oh, gosh, that's so crazy, Martin.
And so I knew based on everything that I kept track of and all the pictures and all the tests and, the surgery notes and everything that at this point, it's time to just get it gone. So I ended up searching another surgeon here in Georgia. Mm-hmm. And I found my last surgeon up at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta. I went and talked with him. And the first question he asked me was, what do you think needs to happen? I said, it needs to come out. It needs to be removed. And he's, yep, I agree. Mm-hmm. And I said, all right, what do we do? And he laid it all out. He explained the whole surgery, who would be in the surgery, what he was going to do. He explained to, possible complications, even long-term, issues I may have. Mm-hmm. And I said, great. When can we get me in? He says, I can get you here in 2 weeks.
Wow. Jeez. That's a quick turnaround.
Right. I was like, all right, let's go. So in October of 2007, I had my esophagectomy and it was another open surgery. Mm-hmm. And they removed 2/3 of my esophagus and 1/4 of my stomach. Mm-hmm. And that was due to all the damage and scarring that had occurred over all my dilations, the Botox injections, the 2 prior surgeries. Mm-hmm. And that's why they had to remove like 1/4 of my stomach. And basically at that point, they made the rest of my stomach into a rudimentary tube and pulled it up through my diaphragm up into my chest wall. And basically my esophagus and my stomach are attached right around my collarbone.
Okay.
Wow.
So that's
intense and such a wild journey when you think about it. Yeah. You know, if you didn't have all of those dilations prior and then the surgeries, I wonder, you know, would your esophagus be in that state, or was it going in that direction anyway? Because achalasia is a progressive disease, right?
right. And you know, that's my kind of consensus with this. And this is why I talk to a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you can get an early diagnosis, early on in the disease process, and you can get a good surgery done. And I'm not a doctor. I've got no advanced medical training whatsoever. But just talking to other surgeons and doctors and other patients and people who've had this, if you get an early diagnosis and you get a good surgeon that's qualified, that is a specialist with achalasia, you have a better chance of not having all that gross damage to your esophagus. And you probably have a better chance of long-term management of the disease process without having to go back and forth every month or 3 months or every 2 years like I did for surgeries.
Yeah.
So the damage is probably, my consensus is try to get the least amount of damage done so you can have longer term management between any procedures or surgeries you might need to have.
Yeah. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And I can see now, looking back, when you got on the phone with me, I was brand new. I just learned of my diagnosis, and it was so powerful. And, you know, to educate people about, you know, how to navigate this and share your experience. So it was so great. And it makes so much sense. Thinking about just the emotional impact of it all. I mean, Martin, you've been through a lot, and you know, different countries, moving around. How did the whole diagnosis, the surgeries just affect you, you know, and your family? Does anything stand out, or?
My family's, we're pretty strong-minded, kind of go with the flow type things, you know, things happen and we look at it and we try to find the best solution for us at that time. And we move through it and keep moving on. So, but I will say that there is a lot of emotional impact on that, even for the family, because they see your spouse or your parent, father or mother, you know, whoever it may be, going through this issue, and you know, they're concerned for you, and they a lot of them feel real helpless on, you know, I can't do anything really for you. You know, it's not, they can't eat for you, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, there's that, and that's within the household. And as for the person who has achalasia, you know, going out into public, especially if you're at a point where you haven't had a diagnosis yet, or you've had a diagnosis and you've had a procedure, whether it's a balloon dilation or something like that, or even a surgery, but you're still having problems, there's a big social impact with eating, because eating is a social event. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
With your family, when you go out with friends, or if you go out with a business meeting, with work, or, you know, it's a social thing. And people look at you and they put a stigma on you of like, you know, why aren't you eating? Or why do you eat so slow? Or why don't you eat certain things? And even to this day, if I go out to a restaurant and, you know, like Outback or wherever, and they want to bring you bread, I'm like, I don't want the bread, because it's still kind of difficult for me to eat.
Right.
I can, but it's, you know, I don't put myself in that position.
Yeah.
So there's a psychological issue to this, where there's a stigma that gets put on the person who has it, and it affects you. You know, I see people that are depressed by it. I see people who just don't want to eat anymore. the whole gamut of emotions, So it has a big emotional impact, and mainly because it revolves around food, and you need food to survive.
Right.
So when people start, I don't want to say nagging you or nitpicking on it, but they bring it to your attention all the time. Every time you go out to eat or you're at a dinner with your family and they bring it up, it's kind of like that little needling, somebody just kind of poking on you. So it is a strain. It's a strain for the whole family, and it's a big strain for the person who has it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. I know I get those comments from my mom all the time. You don't want to eat? You haven't eaten yet? You're only eating that much? And, out of love and care. But it is, you've said it beautifully. It's like that needling reminder.
Yeah, I was like trying not to cry when you're saying that. I don't have achalasia. I just have ineffective esophageal motility and gastroparesis. But exactly what you just said, I resonated with so much because it's every holiday, every dinner out. And I used to be a foodie. I loved food. And no matter how, solid I am with my diagnosis, it needles at you every time someone brings it up. It hurts. Mm-hmm. You're right. It does take that.
And I will say I used to eat an enormous amount of food, being a teenage boy and stuff like that. And I did love food, and at this point, my wife and I have this conversation all the time. What do you want to eat? I don't care. Exactly. I really don't care. Yeah. I don't have a favorite meal anymore. And food for the most part just doesn't, there's no comfort to it.
Yeah. Right. It's just to sustain you.
Exactly. I eat to survive, basically. Where in the past, there's certain foods, you get a craving and stuff like that, which, you try to go after that. Well, because of my last surgery, I don't feel hungry anymore. And I don't have any cravings. And I also don't know when I'm full.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of times where I've overate and I'm really miserable because functionally my system can't handle what I stuffed in there.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of the byproduct of the esophagectomy. Yep. So,
I mean, you kind of touched a little bit on this, but what other strategies or lifestyle changes have you found helpful in managing your achalasia?
Well, one, I think you got to, as the person who has the disease, you have to do a lot of self-reflection on a daily basis of what's going on. How is your body feeling? Are you more tired because you ate certain foods, or are you more frustrated, or are things that you eat harder to swallow and get down? And so I tell people all this time, because they'll ask me, it's like, what's the best foods to eat? I can't tell you. Okay. Yeah. Because what I can eat, Lauren may not be able to eat, or it's harder for her to eat. Okay. So it's just, some people can't drink coffee. Some people can. Yep. Some people can have bread. Some people can't. So it's a self-reflective thing on a daily basis of, what are you eating? How much are you eating? How are you feeling about it? How's your body reacting to it? So it's a daily learning thing. So especially for me after my esophagectomy, because part of that surgery, they also cut the pleurotic valve. Okay.
Right.
So you end up having a dumping syndrome post that surgery. Okay. Which certain foods for me trigger really quick. Very fatty, greasy foods, I stay away from now.
Yep.
High carbs, I stay away from. So I eat a very modified keto diet or low carb diet.
Right.
And that has helped me with that dumping syndrome and my sugar spikes and drops like what was going on. But it's a learning thing. Every person is slightly different. Achalasia has like a strict parameter of lack of peristalsis or no peristalsis. The LES is constricted, does not relax. Those are the common threads across the board with achalasia. Everything outside of that, how much you can eat, what you can drink, what time of day you can eat.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I try not typically, even now, not eat past 6, 7 o'clock at night, only because I knew if I eat later than that and I go to bed shortly after that, I have a lot of issues.
Yep.
So, some other people may not, it might not be as bad for them in that respect. So that's just a self-identifier for every person who has it.
Yeah. I think that's so important. And I think our listeners really needed to hear that, especially from someone who's had this for so long, because a lot of the questions we get is like, well, what should I be doing? And does this work? And does this work? And does this work? And it's hard for us to answer those questions because, like you said, what works for Lauren might not work for the next person. And you really have to learn to listen to your body and adjust daily. Like you said, you're never going to be in a comfort zone.
Right.
It's always changing.
There's been days where I could have absolutely no problems prior to my esophagectomy. I could eat whatever I wanted. Everything went down. And the next day I could have the same meal.
And it wouldn't go down.
And everything's just shut down. Nothing works. Nothing goes in. Everything would come back up. I'd have the discomfort, the pain, all those, that and all the emotions that go with it. Some people get very anxious when they get around dinner time or, it's time to eat because they know, this may not go well.
Yep.
And so that's the other issue, the anxiety could trigger more of an issue. And then, you're fighting this whole circular round robin thing of trying to eat, not being stressed out about it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's true. And I think our mind and our gut are connected, so that emotional piece and that anxiety piece really does play a role too. All right, we're going to shift gears to talk a little bit about something incredible that you did and just the inspiration and the mission itself. So what inspired you to start the Achalasia Awareness Foundation? And what is the mission of the foundation? I know we highlighted it a little bit in the intro, but give us the story. It's very inspiring.
So this actually started when I was in England. I didn't work over there. I took care of the house and the kids. Just was financially a better idea for us. So I had a lot of time to spend on the computer. And back then, Yahoo had an achalasia group in their medical groups, whatever. And so I joined that, and I was very, responsive in there and involved with it. And as that progressed on, when we moved back to the States, I'm like, Facebook came around. And so I started like a Facebook group and stuff like that. And I kept, with the Yahoo group and I was trying to stay involved and trying to learn more and trying to educate people and telling my experiences and stuff. And then right around 2011, I got contacted by a lady named Christine Vernon, and she was just totally beside herself. She had no idea what was going on, and it wasn't for her, it was for her son.
Oh, okay.
And so Steve Vernon had achalasia, and she called me up and she's like, I don't know what he was going through. I don't know anything about this disease, nothing. And so I sat just like with what I did with you, Lauren. I sat on the phone for hours with her.
Yep.
And I explained everything that I knew about achalasia and my journey and what I went through. And she's like, oh, okay, I can understand that. She's like, well, what are you trying to do? And, she found me on Facebook. I said, well, I'd really like to, make a foundation and start a foundation so we can try to get all the information that's kind of out there on the internet and try to put it in one spot try to get the best information I can, the most accurate information, talk to the doctors, get doctors involved, put it in one spot so that people have a resource to go to one spot, not all over the place. And the internet is a great thing, and it can also be a fickle, bad thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So my goal at that point was to try to get the best accurate information in one spot so that people could go to one spot and educate themselves and try to get proper treatment. And so Christine's like, well, I can help you with that. I was like, okay. She's like, why don't you come up to Chicago? Her son, Steve, who had passed away, he was an attorney up in Chicago. And so she's like, let me talk to some of his partners up at the law firm and we'll see what we can do. So I flew up to Chicago. We had a meeting with the Vernons and some attorneys up there. And the one attorney said he would help me set up all the legal paperwork and stuff like that for a nonprofit foundation. And he would do it pro bono.
That's amazing.
I was like, great. So went up there in 2011. Actually, 2012 is when I got my nonprofit status. So it took about a year of paperwork and, you got to do a lot of stuff. You got to register with the state and the IRS. And I mean, there's a whole bunch to go with it. So it took about a year for everything to get done and set. And so in 2012 is when the foundation actually started.
So amazing. And you've helped so many people through that. So, and that's exactly how I found you.
Right. So yeah, the main part is education, information, getting patients or family members or families together on the same area, under the same information, to try to get them to a good surgeon, a qualified specialist. The second part is to try to help promote research. And our foundation has been part of at least one that I know of right now research project. And that was done by a doctor in Germany named Ingus Gockel. And she was actually the one that found out that achalasia is an autoimmune disorder or disease. And that gene 6 is involved with all autoimmune diseases and disorders. So we helped facilitate a research project for her, and we were doing mouth swabs. And I had mouth swabs from people as far away as from Australia, the United States, all over Europe. And there was a specific parameter she had for who was given the DNA samples. But we helped facilitate that. We got it all back here at my house. And then we shipped everything back over to her in Germany for her research. I am in contact with several other surgeons and doctors worldwide still. And there's some projects coming up shortly, hopefully within this next year, to help with research and community efforts for achalasia specifically.
Yes. It is so exciting because the more we can talk about it and bring the awareness, it just, the better it's going to be for everybody involved. So absolutely.
So I see here that in May of 2024, you received the SSAT Public Service Award, which is an incredible honor. Can you tell us more about this award and how you earned it?
We were contacted by the president of the SSAT at the time, early on in 2004 or 2024. And he's like, we want to put you in for this award. And would you be willing to accept if we award it to you? I'm like, yeah, that's sure. Great. And so the SSAT is the Society for Surgery of the Alimentary Tract, which is basically your whole digestive system.
Okay.
And so I was like, yeah, sure. And so a couple months later, I was informed that I was going to be the recipient for the award. In my efforts for the foundation and the websites and stuff like that, and trying to get people involved in more knowledge for the patients and the families. And so we were asked to go to DC. And so we all flew up to DC, and I was given that award, given a plaque, gave a little speech, and I feel it's a great honor. I mean, I'm not looking for any real recognition.
Right.
That's not why I do this. Me talking to people like Lauren and other patients and stuff, and I see that they get to a good surgeon or doctor and they get good treatments and they're doing well is perfect for me. That's great. That's all I want. And like I said, the internet's a fickle thing. Mm-hmm. So people that come on the websites and stuff like that, they're the ones that are having all these problems. They're searching for answers. They're searching for this and that. And a lot of them who come and talk to me and I get them to where they need to be, they drop off the map, off the radar, basically. They're still around. They're just not posting anything. And so that's the other thing I tell people is don't get really caught up in what's on the internet necessarily. Mm-hmm. So it was a great award. I'm very grateful for it. They're great people. That society is a great society. So.
Well, we're grateful for you. I mean, I'm kind of jealous. I wish I had someone like you for gastroparesis to create all this awareness and amazingness.
Seriously. So, Martin, if someone, is listening to this and they go to the foundation page, like what's the best way that people from the outside could help and support? What are your recommendations, for someone maybe who doesn't have achalasia or knows somebody, like how can people help support the work you're doing with the foundation?
Get onto the Facebook group, get onto the foundation page, look at all the information that's there. One of the biggest resources to me, I think, that we have on the foundation page is the World Connection.
Yes, that is so cool. I remember looking at that being like, where are all my friends that have the same disease as I do?
Right. Because a lot of people call me, and like you did, I feel so alone. I feel so like out in the wild, I don't feel like there's anybody around that has this, I'm like the only one. Well, you're not the only one. Okay. And you're not alone. And so we made that World Connection site. It's a world map, and you can go get into there and click on it, and you can see anybody that has allowed us to put their information or their name, whatever it may be. It could be just the first name. It could be full name, address, phone number, web, email address, whatever they want us to put on the site. And we'll put a little icon. And if you just want to say, look, I live in New Mexico, but you don't want to give us a city, well, just stick a tag on New Mexico, Mm-hmm. And so you can go look around in there and go, oh, hey, there's somebody 5 miles from me.
Right.
And you would never know. You would never know. Because what's the likelihood of you actually running into me in the same office, the same doctor's office, or anything? And up until probably about 8 years ago, I was the only one in my area that had achalasia. Mm-hmm. There are 2 other ones right now. One is my secretary for the foundation.
Oh, awesome.
And then there's another person that lives in the area that has it. So, I mean, that's a great resource. Mm-hmm. And to make the connection, that psychological connection to somebody that has the same disease as you and understands your daily plight with the disease is exponentially better than just feeling like you're totally lost and alone.
Yeah.
But look at all the information. Look at who the doctors are. Look at what the disease process is. People, and a lot of people really need to understand, I have to reiterate with this, it's a progressive disease.
Yeah.
And just because you have a procedure or surgery doesn't mean that it's over. It just means that you're probably in a better place than you were.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And hopefully that better place can stay that way for an extended amount of time.
Yep.
That's the big goal. Until we can find a cure for this disease and a cause for it, this is all we have. We have procedures and surgical interventions to get to a better place. And even the testing is even better now.
Yeah.
So they've got the EndoFlip that can do the EGD and the manometry readings, the pressure readings at the same time now, instead of having to do an EGD and then come back later and have a tube put up your nose.
Right. Which is exactly what
we actually have a listener who's terrified of that. But have you heard good things about this EndoFlip?
It's a really good thing. The data, because they can actually do it with a high resolution too. The data they get from it is as accurate, if not better, than a regular manometry. Okay.
See, this is so good to know.
And because you're sedated, because you're having an EGD, because they're going to go in there and look at the internal structure of your esophagus, make sure there's no lesions or polyps or any other issues that may be there. Okay. They can do that. You're sedated. They do the pressure readings and you're done.
That's amazing.
That is so incredible. And it just shows we're moving forward, and just technology is going to continue to advance and develop, and it's just going to get better for all of us. So that's incredible. Yeah. And this is exactly why we started this podcast, Martin, is to that sense of community and connection. There's so many people out there, not just with achalasia, but with other chronic illnesses, autoimmune diseases. And we just wanted to create this special space where we can come together and learn and, bring awareness to all of our different illnesses and diseases. So, as we're closing out here, any advice you would give someone who just got diagnosed with achalasia, like they just are walking out of the doctor's office? What would be advice you would give them?
The best advice I can say is educate yourself. Go find resources.
Yes.
Go read up on the disease. Go try to find the latest technologies that are going out for this disease. What procedures are there? What surgeries are there? Talk to other people who have had it. Yep. Talk to people who just might be diagnosed too, and what is their journey going on? And talk to somebody like Lauren or talk to me, and what is my experience? What is my thoughts? Like I said, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a surgeon, but I've been through the ringer, and knowing what I know and talking with all the doctors and surgeons that I've talked to and continue to talk to and learn about new procedures, new testing, and, where are we going with, the advancements of this disease to try to get a cure and a cause done. Talk to them, educate yourself, and then talk with your family and make the best decision for you. Okay. If you go to a doctor and you don't get that, like I say, that warm, fuzzy feeling from them, and they may be an expert, they may be, one of the top in the field, but if you don't have that warm, fuzzy feeling from them, if you don't kind of gel with them, how is your surgery going to go? Okay. Because you got something in the back of your mind going, and then how's your recovery going to go? Because you're not in a 100% positive mindset to get to where you need to be on a good surgery, a good recovery, and a good management of your disease, whatever the disease may be. Okay. Even if you have a knee surgery and you go to some shoddy knee doctor and you're getting a knee replacement, and you don't have that warm, fuzzy feeling from how confident are you in their skills and what they did. So just educate yourself, talk to other people. You don't have to go to the first doctor you see either. Go get a second opinion. Go get a third opinion if you want, and then when you get your appointments, come and talk to some of us that have been through it again. Pick our bones, or pick our brains, ask us, I'll give you straight answer as best I can. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything.
Yeah.
So
sometimes it's better to hear from someone who's experiencing what you're experiencing than a doctor who just, did some research, and you want to hear from the person who's going through what you're going through.
Right.
This has been amazing. You are such a wonderful resource, and I'm grateful for you because of how much you have helped her and all these people. I mean, what you do is so amazing, and we are so grateful that you have given us your time this morning to be part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you. And if people do want to contact you, and we'll share the Achalasia Foundation link, and just let me know any other ways people can get in contact with you.
My phone number is in there.
Okay, perfect.
And people are more than welcome to call me or text me.
Great.
They can email me. I'm more than happy to spend my time if it's available at that point,
Yes.
And if it's not,
absolutely.
I will make time at some other point. I'll say, hey, can we come back in another day or whatever and talk about this?
Yep.
And even if out of the blue, somebody has just an odd question and they want to send me an email, I will respond. I will talk to you on the phone. So, just go to the website, achalasiainfo.com. Perfect. And send me whatever you want,
Awesome.
Join in, just don't. I would like to see more people be more involved in trying to progress the foundation so we can get more research and more, studies done and build this community even better to make it a more viable place for people to feel comfortable at.
Yes, we couldn't agree more. And that's exactly why we're sitting here today doing this podcast. So
yes, thank you very much. I love this.
Yes. Well, I hope you have a good weekend. Do you have any fun plans this weekend?
No, I got to work.
Well, I'm headed to my son's hockey game. So our weekends are filled with youth sports these days. So
that's great.
Yes. What ages are your kiddos? I'm sure they're grown now.
My son is the youngest. He's 24.
Okay.
And my daughter is 31.
Okay. Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I don't go to their sports anymore.
You're beyond that phase.
Yeah, I have 2 grandkids. My daughter's got 2 children. So,
what are their ages? Little.
2 and 4.
Oh,
fun ages.
Yeah. They're in the toddler phases, huh?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
They're in the thick of it.
Yeah, and they live close to where I live. They're only like 7 miles down the road for right now. My daughter and son-in-law are both in the Air Force, so they're going to move soon.
Yeah.
My son lives in Kansas, and he's also in the Air Force, so I don't see him as much. But
yeah, I love it. Well, thank you again for taking the time to be with us this morning, and we wish you a great weekend and a very happy New Year, kicking off 2025. And we'll, as soon as the show is ready to go, we'll share. So
yes, please do, and I'll add it to my pages and stuff, and the foundation page and everything, so people can access it. And if you want to do this again and have more in-depth questions or whatever, please let me know. I'm more than happy to do that.
I love it. Awesome, Martin. You've been a pleasure to talk to. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. You have a great rest of your day.
All right. You too. Y'all have a blessed one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to a very special episode this week. We really appreciate likes, follows, and reviews wherever you listen to your podcasts.
You can find us at I've Got Guts Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and you can email us at I'veGotGutsPodcast@gmail.com.
See you next time.
Bye.